Good evening. I'm your host, Karen Hudis, in this series on the network of global corporate control. Today's segment is pre-recorded and is about country debt and martial law. Thanks to DCTV, to Carmen Stanley, studio producer and director, Maurice Jackson, audio and teleprompter, and Gabriel Alston, floor director. In 2014, one of the viewers on the Wake Up America show tweeted, "Karen is live right now. She's perhaps the most important whistleblower humanity has ever known. Please listen in." It has been a privilege to work together with all the whistleblowers in the world, uncovering corruption on such a major scale. Now that a critical mass of humanity is with us, we're getting ready for the global currency reset and starting to consult with you on the next steps. Right now, a lot of people are learning about the banking cartel for the first time. The banking cartel is one huge company that owns most of the companies in the world and all of the banks and issues paper money for nothing and then bribes politicians with the money they just printed. This racket has been going on for as long as anyone can remember, and it's about to end. On Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, DCTV has this weekly series. The archives are on YouTube. This award-winning weekly television series has been on the air on public television and internet for 2 years. First, let's talk about country debt. We'll talk about the $2 quadrillion in Treaty of Versailles bonds that were issued by the Federal Reserve in the 1930s in exchange for gold. The interest on the bonds, compounding exponentially, is sufficient to offset the country debt. It's interest on the debt which goes to the banking cartel that keeps humanity enslaved. Many people are working 4 months out of the year to pay taxes to service country debt. It was the Grace Commission set up by Ronald Reagan that concluded that all income taxes were going for the payment to the Fed of interest on country debt. I'm now working on the teleprompter for the pre-recorded segment that's going to be broadcast on June 6th, having gotten feedback from my followers on the teleprompter for the live segment that was just broadcast a little bit earlier today. Twitter is censoring the actual numbers of my tweets that are being widely shared. How do I know this? From the feedback on Facebook, which is also being suppressed, but indicates at least proportional interest. Why is this important? We are in real time, and you're going to see what the United States National War College was telling us about the power transition model that's predicting that we're staying at a World War III, and the significance of the information that a critical mass of people know about the corruption in the world's money system. Game theory predicts how groups react to the changes in others' positions. Now let's drill down on the groups in Russia who understand what Konstantin Petrov was telling us. Enough Russians know who is the head of the snake. It's not Rockefeller, and it's not the Rothschilds. As I told you on April 11th, Winston Churchill, Hitler, Mao Zedong, and Stalin were all agents of the banking cartel. The banking cartel knows what we know. It was the banking cartel that financed the armies that killed 25 million people in Russia during World War II. The people in Moscow State University know it was the banking cartel that falsified our ancient history. I'm writing you this in real time. The hackers in my computer just fiddled with the link to the video on Petrov. I fixed it. I've told you that there are many different hackers in my computer. One geek told me a year ago that there were at least 17. Now I'm going to show you the 2 documents that were on my computer screen this morning when I just booted up. The banking cartel hacked a video on YouTube, so DCTV couldn't show it during my live broadcast about the corruption in D.C. It's D.C.'s new chief of police, Peter Newsham. Is he going to lose his house when he's foreclosed on by the global debt facility containing the world's monetary gold reserves? These are administered by D.C.'s biggest employer, the World Bank and IMF. Will Mayor Bowser perpetuate the corrupt business environment in D.C. and land the world in World War III? And a man named Rod McClusker left most of what's lacking when he says, Karen uses law and others use politics. Others are using financial methods. I'm part of a coalition for the rule of law. The coalition is the BRICS, that's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The G77, that's 133 developing countries that formed a coalition in 1977, and the United States minus the Fed. Germany announced it was going to the BRICS the day I announced, and I forwarded a draft press release for clearance before publishing it. There's a company in China named YCT, and they requested me to issue a letter of intent to Taiwan's central bank for signature, and this was a monetary agreement. This was the day after I requested Daqong Global Credit Rating Group to contact the Universal Credit Rating Group, which is owned by Russia, China, and some individual investors. The likelihood that this coalition asserts the rule of law is 90 to 95% after Elaine Colville and I got our statements up on the UK Parliament website. And this is where the battle for the rule of law stands in the UK Parliament. The battle is now raging everywhere, and I've showed you a tweet. Ron McClusker, who wrote me on my email, said, I can see Evan's point. The common people want to see results. When we hear this message or that message has been sent to one authority or another, it doesn't mean anything. I can write a letter to my prime minister and say he's breaking the law. But does that mean we have rule of law? Until we actually see the criminals being taken out of high positions and we no longer have to give them most of our wages, then we're still being used by them and governed by them. I don't think this has to do with Karen's credibility, however. Karen is a lawyer and is trying to convey to these criminals that we know they're crooked and they're going to be stopped. She does this by presenting laws and facts. The criminals that ignore these laws and facts are subject to consequences. Now, here's something that some people aren't paying attention to. Karen is one person amongst many who are trying to make things right. There are others in the shadows and in the open who are all working towards a better world. Karen uses law, others use politics, others are using financial methods, and then there are some that are using brute force. So instead of demanding one person to accomplish what you won't even attempt to do, why not shut up and ride the wave and see what happens before you criticize others? The power transition model is telling the people of the world who do not want World War III what to watch for. The U.S. must kick out the Fed and retain its alliances with Germany and Russia and Japan. Easy peasy. We're going to bankrupt the Fed, which owes the world $2 quadrillion, and finance the defense of Japan and Germany and the rest of our military with the monetary gold on deposit with the ministers of finance on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF, for whom I speak. This is what I told the German and Japanese defense attachés just before I told Mr. David Ferriero, who is the bogus head of the U.S. Archives, when he was falsifying the bogus electoral college results in the last presidential elections. Why do I say these were bogus elections? Because the United States Constitution of 1789 was not in effect. We will examine the proof of this statement in the rest of this segment. This picture can be seen in greater detail along with some quotes about country debt on this website, and there's a website in the teleprompter, the link. The Greek people now know that country debt is a scam because it can be offset against Treaty of Versailles bonds. The issue on Puerto Rico's debt is every bit as significant, especially when you realize how many pensions have invested in Puerto Rico's bonds. I made this point to the people who manage the pension investments, including California's treasurer. And then there's a letter that I wrote to him, which you can see in the teleprompter. And it says, I just left a voicemail message on Elisa Carlson's cell phone after she hung up on me. Then Cassandra Smoot called me back and also hung up on me. So now I've emailed this to Mark Paxson, who's the general counsel in the California Treasurer's Department. The Federal Reserve notes are not crashing, and NCPERS board is on notice that NCPERS employees are not accountable. People are helping me when I write these teleprompters. This is taken from the DCTV archives on YouTube from May 28th. I'm busy working on next week's DCTV teleprompters. People are reacting to tweets about the Constitution of 1789 being suspended and the fact that the U.S. is under martial law. Actually, as the Board of Governors of the World Bank, which administer the U.S. monetary gold reserves, have determined, the United States is in interregnum and does not have a legitimate government. This is readily apparent from my February 2nd letter to Neil Gorsuch. The teleprompter contains a link to the full text of the letter, and I'm just going to read you a couple of paragraphs. Your nomination to fill Justice Scalia's vacant seat on the U.S. Supreme Court is part and parcel of the false veneer of legality that is covering up the corruption in the financial system. As overseer mandate trustee of the global debt facility containing the U.S. monetary gold reserves, it's my job to end this corruption through a global currency reset. To this end, I hold commercial liens under the common law on all of the property of those agents of the banking cartel who are preventing me, the United States, and the rest of the world's people from accessing the monetary gold reserves of the nations. I also hold a commercial lien on Donald Trump. This letter explains the enclosed first notice under a commercial lien that I and the Global Debt Facility are obtaining on your property as well, because you are perpetuating this false veneer of legality while a cover-up of corruption is rampant. This cover-up is harming me and the rest of the people of the world by preventing our access to the Global Debt Facility. And then I also put in the teleprompter, go ahead, Facebook, break the link. That's only an admission that there is martial law. And what I did was I showed an opinion of Utah's Supreme Court, which says, quote, "What most people don't realize is they have been under martial law for over 60 years. The footnote in that legal opinion says, since March 9, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the President may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute martial law, seize and control all transportation and communication, regulate the operation of private enterprise, restrict travel, and in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of all American citizens. A majority of the people of the United States have lived all of their lives under emergency rule. For 40 years, freedom and governmental procedures guaranteed by the Constitution have been in varying degrees abridged by laws brought into force by states of national emergency." Actually, the Supreme Court of Utah doesn't go far enough back. The U.S. has been under martial law ever since 1861. In 1996, a study group in South Carolina looked at the records in their state house and came to the conclusion that the Constitution of 1789 was no longer in effect. The fact that the Constitution of 1789 was replaced by a second secret constitution in 1871 has been widely published on the internet, and there's a link in the teleprompter to a website which is talking about that. In response to a comment that there's no coalition for the rule of law, I said that that was a very cute comment. Of course, you see the existence of the Coalition for the Rule of Law, and they have shown who they are. This is in the power transition model. The Coalition for the Rule of Law, who are these people? They are first and foremost the people that are commenting on my social media. They are now at critical mass. Then they are the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and the U.S. minus the Fed, Germany, Japan, the G77, that's 134 developing countries. You have to understand that the banking cartel is trying to conceal the evidence that this coalition exists. But there are clear signs, like the fact that I'm continuing to use World Bank stationery. Nobody is contradicting what I'm saying, and what I say has consequences for the bid actors like Trump, Gorsuch, Okoro, that is the former general counsel of the World Bank, who I've bankrupted through commercial liens, and those I have previously bankrupted, including Obama, Dunford, and Bowser. The statement by Representative Traficant in the United States Congressional Record in 1993, he was addressing the House, and he said that the federal government was declared bankrupt. The statement in the Utah Supreme Court that I just read you, saying that the U.S. is under martial law, actually, in 1861, the U.S. was placed under secret martial law. The U.S. Congress declared that the U.S. is under a state of emergency. There is no legitimate government in the United States. A critical mass of people realize that there is no consent to the martial law that was in effect. The U.S. is now in interregnum. This state of affairs has been recognized by a coalition for the rule of law on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. I represent the U.S. on the Board of Governors of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, and this is recognized by the power transition model of the National War College, and therefore, we are actually all working together, and we control the U.S. monetary gold reserves. This is the foundation for the global currency reset. The global currency reset is to replace the banking cartel's paper currencies with local currencies issued by villages and towns and with national currencies in a process that is going to be clearly identified and proceed in an orderly fashion according to procedures that are clearly agreed by the Board of Governors of the World Bank and IMF and discussed by all of the people in the Bretton Woods member countries. And that's why you're writing into the comments on the archives for these series. And I also put a document on the teleprompter, which I'm going to read you some pieces from. It went on the 24th of June in 2016, and it was about Maryland Defense Force. They think they serve the network of global corporate control, or do they serve us? And I wrote to the help desk, and I was giving a quote from Douglas MacArthur's speech, which he made in July 1951 to the Massachusetts State Legislature in Boston. And this is what Douglas MacArthur said: "I find in existence a new and heretofore unknown and dangerous concept that the members of our armed forces owe primary allegiance and loyalty to those who temporarily exercise the authority of the executive branch of government, rather than to the country and its constitution, which they are sworn to defend. No proposition could be more dangerous. None could cast a greater doubt upon the integrity of the armed services, for its application would at once convert them from their traditional and constitutional role as the instrument for the defense of the Republic into something partaking of the nature of a Praetorian Guard, owing its allegiance to the political master of the hour." And that's the end of Douglas MacArthur's quote. As Overseer Mandate Trustee of the U.S. and rest of the world's monetary gold reserves, I've been calling upon the state defense forces to give me access to print U.S. Treasury dollars to replace the unconstitutional Federal Reserve notes in a global currency reset. I vote the U.S. shares on the Board of Governors and Boards of Executive Directors of the World Bank and IMF, and the Committee of the Boards of Governors of the Bank and the Fund. That's a very long name for the Development Committee, which is 25 ministers of finance. There are many people following my efforts on the Internet. The network of global corporate control identified by Vitali Glatfelder and Battiston of ETH Zurich has been trying to conceal the numbers. Yesterday, I reminded people that the CIA, which is headquartered in Switzerland, created Google, which owns YouTube. My original blog had been taken down. The fact that you're reading this indicates that the Coalition for the Rule of Law is stronger than the network of global corporate control. The Secret Service tried in vain to remove me from the Internet and didn't succeed. The network of global corporate control tried to steal humanity's assets and to shut me down in all kinds of nasty other ways. Just yesterday, they snuck into my home and stole my passport. But they are powerless against the Coalition for the Rule of Law. If the Maryland Defense Force thinks they serve the network of global corporate control instead of the people of Maryland, please let me know. I had asked Helen Schomburg, Assistant Controller of the Office of Finance in Arundel County, to check with you before she broke the law and endangered the lives of the people in Maryland by refusing to issue me a receipt for my payment of the tax for recording the lien issued by Maryland's Secretary of State. We are now helping a larger number of people understand the corruption in the international financial system caused by the paper currencies issued by the network of global corporate control and understand the collective unconscious. This is so that there's a peaceful global currency reset. Thank you for listening to another segment of the Network of Global Corporate Control. In this segment about country debt and martial law, we've demonstrated how it is that humanity can peacefully regain control of the military in the United States without a coup. The loyal military are defending the Constitution of the United States and fulfilling its obligations to its allies under treaties for defense. It may take some time as the duped catch on to the fact that the banking cartel has been lying to them. Stay tuned as the global currency reset rolls out.